New Zealand's most important industry is livestock farming, yet less than 5% of our 3 million people work on the land. And with 60 to 70 million sheep, to say nothing of all our cattle, deer and goats, someone or something has to do all the work. Fortunately, we have a workforce that does all the heading, hunting and handling of this huge resource. Several 100,000 sheepdogs, whose care and control is vital to agriculture and to the country as a whole. Brought to you in the interests of good stockmanship by the makers of these dog foods, Tux and Rover, this program will deal solely with the basics of training dogs for everyday farm work. That's both hunterways and heading dogs. It's especially designed for those of you who are considering a career with livestock, have already begun one, or age and experience aside, those of you who want to find a more peaceful means of bringing in stock with competent dogs. This isn't a guide to aspiring sheepdog trialists, nor will it deal with any other method of training dogs other than a simple one that can be done by anyone without any special aids or devices. The man who'll talk of and demonstrate his method of training sheepdogs is Les Knight of Tikawiti. Les is one of New Zealand's leading sheepdog trialists, though that's not really important here. What matters is that he's a stockman of over 40 years' experience and a teacher of both young dogs and young people of a very high reputation. Les has also written and published this book, A Guide to Training Sheepdogs in New Zealand, which you should also consider buying if after seeing this you want to go even further as a stockman. And to Les Knight, stockmanship means placing a high value on both your dogs and your control of them.
On most farms, they would be the most valuable animal on that farm.
And they're important to bring stock in. How important is it that you can control the dog to do the job properly?
Very, very important. There's all sorts of hazards on most farms which can get stock into trouble without having an untrained dog chasing them into those hazards.
Many of you will start out with an older dog you've bought or has been given to you to get you going. Invariably, it'll teach you more than you'll teach it. Though an old campaigner can have a frustrating trick or two up its sleeve. And it's about that time that you'll probably want to get a pup yourself and start it from scratch. And really, that's the most rewarding part of shepherding, bringing out a dog you've reared and trained yourself. And this is where it all starts, here in the pup pen. This setup belongs to Paul Sorensen. Paul's a top dog man and a former pupil of Les Knight's, who's a firm believer in getting his pups off to a really good start. A start that will enhance their working life.
If you don't get the initial rearing part right, you won't have anything to work on anyway. So it's therefore it would be the most important part. You would find that it makes it a lot easier to administer command and that to an animal that's got all its marbles and been looked after and shown a bit of kindness, and that before you actually start putting the command on. If you haven't got that, it's a vegetable.
With the typical appeal of the young, they all look well worth having. Yet, faced with a group like this, how do you pick the one that'll suit you?
Good breeding's the main thing. There are many fads and fancies, but as long as the expression of a pup is right, and his conformation, that's about all you can look for.
What can a man learn by just picking up a pup in a pup pen?
Well, the less tenseness that you can feel in the pup, the better he'll be to handle. If he's all tensed up and terrified when you handle him, he will be 9 times out of 10 quite difficult to teach.
If you're not sure about a pup, but you take him as an experiment, do you think that's a good idea?
I like to like a pup when I first put an eyes on. If I don't like him then, I never will like him. And I like to take a pup on first look, and if I liked him then, chances are that I'll stay liking him.
G'day. Having made your choice, you're now in charge of an animal that has the potential of becoming very valuable to you. So it's your responsibility to look after it, which means the right mixture of kindness, discipline, feeding and good housing.
Well, firstly, John, they've got to be warm and dry, and you don't need an elaborate setup for them, but it's desirable to have it portable so it can be shifted and as much room as possible. I give them bread and milk in the morning, and in the evening they get meat and milk. And at all times they must have fresh water.
Do you feed them to appetite?
Yes, I would like to see a small amount still in the dish. If it's all gone and the pup's coats aren't too good, well, it's an indication that the job's not, you're not feeding enough.
Pups should learn to drink cow's milk in the latter stages of life with their mother, and have also had their first introduction to meat, usually in jellied form. After weaning, they should be fed raw meat, not in hard cubes, but on the bone, so they can tear off strips that are easier to digest, which also helps teeth and gum development. There's also this dry meal preparation available, which is very good for growing pups to fully balance their diet. It's called kibble mix, and it's a combination of a wide range of vitamins, minerals, a cereal, milk powder, and meat and fish meals. It can be fed dry, or mixed with wet meats, other foods, or with milk. There's a very nutritious porridge. Adding kibble mix is very good for pups, but never change their diet in one sharp move, as this can upset their metabolism. Which is why whenever you get a new pup, you should always find out what it's used to, so you can make your changes gradually. Another area you have to consider is protecting the youngster's health.
Well, the pups, of course, are vaccinated at 12 weeks, and we give them pup pills once a fortnight, whether they look as if they need it or not. Very
That's
important.
For worms.
Yes, very, very important, that part of it. And we regularly look at them to see that there's no fleas or anything on them, because it can, it's very important, the flea part of it. It'll knock them around quite considerably.
And the bone grow you also feed?
Yes, I sprinkle the bone grow on the milk in the morning. It's only given to them once a day, and that's with the bread and milk in the morning.
As well as the right feeding and housing, Paul places a lot of emphasis on exercise. Every evening, Mrs. Sorensen takes the pups for a walk around the paddocks. This doesn't just help their fitness, but also their confidence.
It not only exercises them, but develops their brain, which is by getting through fences and that sort of thing, and it plays a very big part for when I take over.
Come on, good boy, come on. Good boy. Come on.
Fit, fat and friendly, these pups are living proof of excellent care and attention. The next stage in their lives is leaving the nursery and beginning training.
My wife normally indicates when that occasion arises. She comes home all red in the face and can't catch them, the chasing stock.
Once you decide to harness that energy and gain some control over the dog, that control should never be more than having the say over what the dog does. What we're out to achieve here is a good working relationship with trust and understanding on both sides. To develop that, the basic steps in Les Knight's training program are, first, tying up and handling, then a stop command along with a call to you, then it's the introduction to sheep, which is really confidence building, putting on the side commands, which is done with sheep, then developing the run out, and finally increasing distance and control in the pull. The first stage in Les's program, and Paul's too, is tying the pup up for little more than an hour to introduce it to the idea of man-made restraint. This should always be against a wall, not a wire fence.
He learns that the more he fights the chain, the more he'll get hurt. He learns that by fighting he's only hurting himself. And he'll only fight and reef and rant for a very short time and then calm down, and provided the boss goes along and puts his hands on him, restores his confidence, he finds that discipline doesn't altogether mean ill treatment. And it's the start of building a bond, which is very important.
With a ring on one end.
The principal use is for putting control on a pup at the initial stages. And I'll show you how I do it. I just make a little loop, use this cord, but I think it's more effective to push him right down. You can, with a very tough dog, put him right down like that, but I don't like that method. But that's the initial part of getting the command on a pup. And you need to handle him quite a lot, get him used to and confident of your handling him.
What are the dangers, Les, of someone who may not have the right temperament using a piece of cord like that with a youngster?
I'll never use it as a punishment, just as a measure of control. Never think of it as a thing of torture.
Once it's obeying you and at some distance, it's now time for the next stage, the all-important introduction to sheep. And as you can make or break a young dog at this stage, there's some important points to consider before you get it to face up to sheep.
Well, timing through the whole beginning of a dog career is important, to know just when to do these things. And you can only do it by instinct, if you like. The pup usually indicates how confident he is. And some pups will start very young, others have got no inclination to start until 6, 8 months old. So you never force them at this stage. They've got to tell you when they're ready, really.
What is the one sign that tells you when a pup's ready to meet sheep?
When he's looking to chase sheep on his own, when he's loose.
What are the other points one should consider when you're introducing a dog to sheep in terms of paddock and the sheep themselves?
Well, it should be a safe paddock, not too big, so that if they do run, they can't go too far and leave the pup not able to head them. That destroys his confidence for a start, and it may even last well into his career as a heading dog. Now this pup is under 3 months old. I don't know just exactly how old he is, but looks very promising. And he's at the very basic stages of building confidence. Robin's teaching him that she's part of the machinery and that his job is to balance on her. By changing her position often, she keeps him keen and teaches him that he is to balance on her wherever she goes. That means pulling the sheep straight towards her.
Steady.
That's what you'd expect of a mature dog, that little move forward onto sheep. And she's moving away to give it room, sheep room to move when the dog does walk straight at them. That's the beginning of the pull, of sheep drawing sheep towards you. Yeah, well, the main aim was teaching that pup to balance on a person. Any pup will ring sheep or work them, but they have no idea of balancing on a man or woman. That is the main thing, and keeping it enjoyable and with plenty of movement just to build the pup's confidence.
How important is it to look for signs of disinterest and nerves?
Very important. That if you go past the point of interest, real sourness can creep in, because if you lose patience, use a little bit of pressure to force them, and that can be disastrous.
How would a pup show signs, those signs?
Yawning is a very common one. You see them yawning, you can guarantee they're tight.
How important is regular work?
Oh, very important. With a puppy as small as this, they wouldn't want a lot. But as they grow older, a few minutes whenever you can spare the time. But no more than a few minutes. Not great long periods where the pup gets sick of it.
After a period of regular outings with sheep, this dog, a different one, has developed a lot of skill and confidence. He's going to and holding the point of balance between him and Les, and he's now ready to have the sides put on. That is, the left and right commands.
When I go this way, it means the pup must go that way. But you don't force him into it, you move the sheep so that he naturally wants to go there to be on balance. When I go this way, that means for him to move that way.
And that command you're putting on is the one you're going to use for that particular side?
Yes, that means for that dog to go to my right. And this one means for him to go to my left. Naturally, his natural balance comes in there to correct. Push this pup any harder, you can see the odd sniff and that sort of thing, showing a little bit of nervousness.
Les, at what stage would you give a dog a side and make it sit there even though you may move back to put it off balance?
Not at this stage. It's a bit early yet. As I say, if you start to do that sort of thing, you'd kill his interest. Perhaps a bit of sourness would creep in. So any of that, all you're doing is letting him work on his natural balance, and the commands are actually an encouragement.
We've now got 4 basic commands on the dog: the sit, the call off, the left and the right, or brakes, boomerang and handlebars. So now it's time to add an accelerator and power steering, that is, the run whistle and the kick out to keep the dog off sheep when it's hitting them. To do this, Les Knight uses the merry-go-round, not a machine but a method.
What I mean by the merry-go-round is just simply calling a dog off balance, bringing him right around behind me and resending him in the same movement. At the same time, giving the sheep a bit of a chase to excite him, make sure he's running flat out, and then from there you can correct many faults on this method, and you can also take the next step towards teaching a dog to head long distances and being able to guide him on that long distance by kicking him out as he's coming around. Now I'll try to demonstrate this now. Here sprint, here sprint. You can see that when the sheep are moving, he gets a bit excited and runs hard. Here sprint, here sprint. Here sprint, here sprint. If he's inclined to stop short just before he heads his sheep, you can correct that like this. Here sprint, here sprint. That's one of the faults you can correct in a dog. Now, I'll go a step further, increase his distance a little, and as he comes round, I'll kick him off. And he gets the foundation then of his guiding whistles for a run out. Here sprint, here sprint.
Les, when you send the dog round like that, how many different commands are you using?
At the initial stages, use a call-in whistle, call-in behind, and then which is a quick running whistle, and then the kick-off, that's a separate whistle again. But it can be done all with a side whistle if you wish.
So what's the next stage?
Just then take them onto increasing distance and pulling, so that they've got a distance to bring the sheep from point A to U.
Watching Les Knight work a dog, it's all too easy to say it's all very well for him, he's experienced. Sure, but you too, with patience and regular work, can also bring out a good heading dog. We'll pause now so you can discuss the program so far and ask any questions of your group's leader or local experts. We'll be back just as soon as you want to press the play button with Working Dog Nutrition and the training of a Huntaway. Looking after your team properly is both a responsibility and a form of insurance, protecting your investment in time and money, to say nothing of the security of your livelihood. After all, our sheepdogs are the largest workforce in the country that don't have negotiating powers at the arbitration court. they're at your mercy. As a good example of thoughtful care and housing, let's take a look at Paul Sorensen's facilities. They're excellent.
Well, John, I find it most convenient for feeding and cleaning and keeping the dogs healthy here. I place a very high value on all of them. And it's a big part of my life, these dogs, and it's pretty important to me. The meat doesn't get fly blown and what have you. It's in good condition when it's fed to the dogs.
What sort of a diet do you like to have your dogs fed on when you're working them?
Well, they must have plenty of meat. If they're working hard, they must have plenty of red meat. And the amount I give them, they virtually indicate what they need by the condition of the dog. He doesn't want to be too fat or too thin.
A dog in medium work needs 1.5 times its normal maintenance ration, and in full work, double rations. Precisely what those rations are is entirely up to you. But there's no doubt that feeding a balance of mutton and dry dog biscuits of the quality of the Tux and Rover lines makes for a very good diet.
Okay.
These biscuits are consistent, safe in hydatids and sheep measles terms, and high energy. As well as meat and fish meals, milk powder, bone substitute, wheat and animal fat, there are other important ingredients like vitamins and minerals. Sure, this material has to be bought in, but as you don't have to pay your canine staff any wages, a small contribution towards their well-being, come fuel source, shouldn't be considered out of the question. The engine room of any shepherd's team is his hunterways. Look at any good working lineup, and if there's 5 dogs, at least 3 of them, or more likely 4, will be hunterways. And don't forget, they can do a lot of your heading work too, because they're a complete working dog. Though, as Les Knight points out, the basic difference between the two types, heading and hunterway, isn't just their noise levels, but the way they're worked and handled at the training stage.
Just a little bit easier to handle, perhaps, than a heading dog. He's not as highly strung. But you've still got to be careful and show reasonable gentleness with it, even with a hunterway.
They're not a tough-natured dog?
Not all hunterways. Some are, as some heading dogs are tough. But you don't gain much even by being tough with a tough dog. I think you only harden a tough dog. And so the gentler you can do it, the better.
This is the pup that was tied up at the beginning of the program, and this is its first official introduction to sheep. The whole object of the exercise is enthusiasm, to eliminate fear and to give the pup a feeling of freedom.
Liberty to do their own thing, and you can sort out what their natural ability is, and then if the ability is there, the natural ability, you've got something to work on. He concentrated, he was confident, and when a sheep broke off, he was there to put it back. Yeah, I liked him.
He didn't have any nasty habits either. What would you do if he had started to bite?
Oh, well, I would have growled for a start, and if he had continued, then I'd have got a bit rougher.
But you wouldn't get too rough at that stage?
No, but he wants to learn at the very initial stages that it's wrong to bite sheep. That's an inexcusable thing. Here, Ed. Here, Ed. Now, this pup has only got a call on him. A call home. Get up. Here, Ed. And that's all at the moment. He's fairly green, but that's all he needs, because he'll only be worked in the holding paddock for a week or two. When he's obeying the call consistently and yet going confidently, then he can go to work. Most hunterways at this age, they haven't a great deal of gather, As long as they use their noise and try to correct their mistakes, I'm quite happy. But you do need to have a little bit of command to call them off when they're getting into trouble. Here, Ed. Here, Ed. Here, Ed. Here, Ed. As with a heading dog, the less compulsion, the better. Get it behind.
The dog's going round and round like that. How important is that to encourage that feeling of freedom? Because some people might think that it was all out of control.
Yeah, it's very important to bring the noise out first. If you inhibit a hunt-away pup at the start, he's going to be reticent with his noise. And that's really important, because noise is a hunt-away, really.
And when do you put on a bark whistle?
When he gets a little bit more polished than that, and then I put the bark whistle just as an encouragement. He doesn't know what it means for a start, but he picks it up after a while, just by repetition.
And when does the stop whistle go on?
Not until he's going really confidently, using his noise, and as long as he's got a good call on him, you can take him to work, except you don't leave him behind a mob at gateways. Take him with you, and you won't get into trouble. But if you put a stop on them, I found too early, you just inhibit them just enough to take some of the noise out.
As Les says, once the dog's under control, you can give it straightforward work out on the farm. But all the confidence building should be done in the holding paddock. And after regular work, it should be ready for the sides and the stop. And it's here that Les Knight uses his cord on the hunt-away.
You put the stop on a hunt-away the opposite way around to a heading dog, because you want the dog to be facing his stock and delivering his noise straight at stock, not back at you. So you teach a dog to stop facing away from you, and do it close at hand, and just with that string is only just to control him, just to stop him from running away from you. Most of it's done just with your hands, an encouragement and a command to stand up. If he turns round, stand up. Just like that, and give him your stop whistle. And it only takes a very short time before he gets the meaning of it. That's the very first time that pup's stand up. Don't let them play at this stage of the journey. They've got to know it's serious business. Good boy.
And you want him standing up?
Standing up, yes.
It's not a sit whistle in, it's a
Not for
stop
a
on
hunt-away.
all fours.
that would defeat the purpose. It would, you like a bit of style in a hunt away, and if he's sitting down, he's not on the job.
With that string around the neck, Les, how much pressure do you actually put on that?
Only if he starts to play or to, it's just a restraint to stop him from running away. If he turns around and gets playful, then you need something just to bring his attention back to you. But the more you can do with your hands, the better. After a couple of days, you can dispense with the cord, you can do the rest with your hands. And from that position, you can then go on to starting the foundation of putting side commands on by simply, he'll instinctively turn towards you, stand up, give him the other side command, step this way. And while you just give him the side commands at the same time, which will show you a bit more effectively later. Now, the Huntaway is not just a specialist dog. He can become a very, very versatile one with good handling. And to get that handling ability, I start them off with a lot of heading work. Get it behind, Buff. Give me a stoke. The sides are put on very similar to the heading dog. By the use of sides, you can pull him right round and behind after a while when he's experienced. Then you can begin hunting with him after he's learned the fundamentals of stock work. Just remember that a Huntaway's naturally boisterous, and you don't want stock knocked about, so you've got to control that boisterousness without inhibiting him too much. Ready. That'll do, Stoke. When you turn a Huntaway around and ask him to hunt sheep after he's done a lot of heading work, at the initial stages he will perhaps lose a little bit of confidence, because while he's heading, a lot of his work's done at full gallop. When you bring him behind sheep, it's got to be much more controlled. Most of it's done at a walk or a little more. And that's fairly unnatural for any dog, so that you've got to just make an allowance, not try and force his noise, just wait for it to come, wait for his confidence to build up.
Les, what do you do to get extra control of the dog when you've got it hunting right under the sheep, as you have now?
An extension of what I do at the beginning with the string around the neck, if they're getting a bit boisterous, I'll give them a stop whistle and walk up and touch them. All right, mate. Just to make sure they stop, and also just restore their confidence a little. If you walk up to them like that and kick them in the behind, well, you've ruined everything. So, you know, it's got to be a no punishment situation.
Is that all part of the bond thing between you and the dog?
They're being also assured that they're still your mate.
To what extent should that bond continue, not only now in the training stage, but right throughout the dog's working life?
Well, you'll never get a really top dog without that. And if you're fighting with a dog, you've only got half the dog.
The subject of sheepdogs, their care and control, is so wide that you could live to be 150 and still be learning. What we've shown you here are the basics of one system. There are others, but please don't try them until you've mastered this one and also consulted with someone who's experienced in that particular system. Take your dog to him and he might also pick up on points you'd either ignored or had never noticed. One day you may wish to enter your dog in a sheepdog trial. If you do, good luck, as the trial ground's a great place to test yourself and learn more. But whatever your ambition, using a simple method of training like this one means you'll get a lot more pleasure out of working your dogs and be a far more effective member of the rural workforce.